So, welcome back to another episode of Becoming a Mental Health Champion, the podcast, presented by the AV Burton Foundation Resiliency Project. I'm your host, Reggie Burton, author of Becoming a Mental Health Champion, a new book that's available on Amazon. So, this podcast is designed to champion the conversation around mental health and normalize what can be some uncomfortable discussions, whether it's with your family or with friends. We want to make it where you can just kind of have casual conversations, get information, and become your own mental health champion. Follow us on YouTube. That's where you can subscribe and like our previous podcasts. Also on Spotify. Today, I am really excited to welcome someone who should be a very familiar face and name if you watch local news here in Las Vegas. And Marie Mortera also is the host of the Mental Health Matters program that airs on Mondays on News 3 at 6 p.m. Marie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Reggie. Good to be with you. And it is a privilege to join you in this important discussion about mental health.
Yeah, so as this year begins, I want to do something and maybe take a look back and then maybe take a look forward. You host a program that we're affiliated with at the Avery Burton Foundation very proudly because we talk about all things mental health and wellness, resilience, overcoming adversity. Would you do for our audience, do me a favor and just sort of reflect back on the years of hosting this program, what you've learned, and then what you look forward to
Yeah.
in this year?
First word that comes to mind, inspiring. I think some of the most powerful stories, because really that is what the series is. They are personal stories from people like yourself who come to the table with authenticity and vulnerability and a willingness to share your lessons, what you've learned through going through a chapter, a profound chapter, and then letting people know that they are not alone and that there's so much healing around us. It is not, I think, a secret that Southern Nevada has so much to do when it comes to getting more resources for mental well being. And when people say, I don't know where to go, or I feel as if there's a financial barrier, what I love to be able to say is here is a no cost program, a platform on News 3 where people can learn about the resources like the Avery Burton Foundation, um, resources at CCSD schools throughout public education. There's a community of folks who want to help and provide. And I think that is so important because one of the things that we've spoken about is when it comes to these dark moments that people have in their lives, isolation is one of the worst things that can happen. And what you've been able to do in the conversations that we've been able to have on mental health matters is to create a collective and to show people that there is a network out here. May not look like networks that you might find in other communities, but no doubt Las Vegas has a powerful, inspiring network of healers. And so that's what I've learned over the years. And I don't expect that to change come next year in the future. And if anything, I expect it to build. And it partly because of your acknowledgement, your ability to address the issues at hand, put a spotlight on them, and say, let's expose what is, let's talk about it, and find solutions.
Yeah, I think it's been incredible just to hear the variety and the tapestry of stories of meeting people where they are on their journey. I wanted to ask you, and maybe this is a little bit more of a personal question. Has there been anything in terms of stories that you've done? Has there been anything that surprised you or resonated with you on a personal level where maybe you've gone home that night and just said something to your kids and or just thought more deeply about after work?
I think there's so many stories that impact me in a way, Reggie, for sure. I think it's when somebody sends me an email saying, that mattered to me, or someone says, I have a question about a story. Can we go deeper? I love those moments because it's not just me passing along a message. Now we've created a conversation. Now we've created a discussion. And what I find most fascinating is that it shows that this is not a passive process, right? Like when we share our stories, it is not just like clouds in the sky that just passes by and that's it. There are many times when people go, hey, wait a minute. I want to go deeper on this, or I have a perspective here, or maybe you haven't thought about this. And I love sometimes it's emails, sometimes people stopping me at the store. During the height of the election, I'd have people come up to me and say, it's interesting that this story was done this way and why. Hmm. Oh, I love that. Well, I will tell you why I think we did the story. What do you think we could have added, or what did you feel like you needed to hear? I share this, you bring up my kids, they are students, and so am I. And I love the humility that comes with being reminded that I don't know everything because I certainly do not, and being surprised by a new angle, a new avenue that I haven't looked at yet. Here's one, for example. Most recently, I went into a tunnel where homeless individuals were staying. And I'm not talking about a one time thing because they needed temporary respite. No, they'd been living this way for years. A name from many, 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 many years ago reached out saying, I thought your story was fascinating. I'm sharing it with an author in town who has recently or has gone to the tunnels and written a book about it. I can't wait, I hope to connect further with those folks who understand and see this world that I had a glimpse of getting into and going, wait a minute, you know what? There's more, and there's more, and there's more. And when we realize there's always more to something, always something to be curious about, whether it be mental well-being or how can we better connect, how can we have more of these discussions? It doesn't end. And that's super exciting to me.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that because I'm the same way. I'm always collecting, data points when I'm out, whether it's promoting my book or just speaking, to groups. I'm collecting information. And what's fascinating, and you just touched on a word that I think is really part of that EQ or that emotional intelligence quadrant, curiosity. I think people are becoming more curious and leaning in, recognizing that the resources maybe aren't there. I take great pride in the fact that I feel Avery Burton Foundation is bridging some of those gaps, where we're seeing some of those resources either just not be there right now or whatever the case may be. But I take great pride in being able to connect people to professionals, the people that are out in the mental health community doing the work and have that training. So I love that curiosity. What are some of the trends that we can give our audience to look for in the conversation around mental health and wellness that you're seeing maybe moving forward in 2026?
Yeah, I think that word conversation, that's the root of it. I think that with the advent of technology and, this and how it's constantly there, I think we're recognizing that it is an incredible tool and it can help support what is already a fantastic human tool, which is our ability to communicate. Going back to the Avery Burton Foundation, I had the privilege of being there for the inaugural gala. And one of the most spectacular moments, there's so many, but to hear the young people get up in front of a crowd and share how important it was, how significant it was for them to be seen through their essay. It was so powerful, Reggie. I'm sure that you felt it. I certainly felt it. Young people about to take on the next chapter of their lives, sharing something so deeply personal. And again, that story of resilience, how they were able to come out of a very hard, tough situation. And that's the spark of a conversation. Maybe it wasn't, what we might perceive in our mind as a one person kind of thing, but someone sharing their story and it resonating with us is a form of communication and and a connection that I think people are looking for so badly in this world. It's impactful. And I think that's what's really going to be important going forward. I mean, it always has been, but underscoring the importance of that human connection. But at this point, I haven't seen evidence that AI can be the complete replacement of that.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating, provocative conversation. And I think we touched on it on the News 3 town hall, the mental health town hall. Hopefully if you didn't get a chance to watch it, please go to the News 3 website so you can see the conversation that took place. But part of it talked about the use of technology and AI. I think the consensus of our panel was that the technology, it's great, it's a tool, but it doesn't replace that human connection. I want to go back just briefly about what you said. So, for those of you joining the podcast for the first time, you're on with Marie Mortera, local familiar face in Las Vegas. If you're watching on News 3, also host of the Mental Health Matters uh, program on mental health and wellness. We did have a gala. Avery Burton Foundation had its first annual gala in 2025, and Marie was so generous with her time to host it as our MC. And what she was referring to was just our scholarship recipients. We hand out 5 scholarships each year, and our scholarship recipients, and these are just phenomenal students. But what we, I think, all took away is that they're not perfect, right? They may have great test scores and done really well in school, but they're not perfect finished products as people. And we heard very clearly and very poignantly about their struggles, their challenges through high school, whether they're financial, emotional, or both. And the one student that just comes to mind when you said that, Marie, was the young man who I believe was going off to University of Florida, and his father had recently passed away after a bout with cancer, and he just spoke off the cuff. I mean, these were not prepared remarks, totally unscripted, the most heartfelt remarks that any 18-year-old or 19-year-old could give, and it was just a showstopper.
Yeah. Right, right, exactly. And that courage, right? Because oftentimes, because of Avery's legacy, a lot of these students come from athletic backgrounds where you are judged by your score, how well you do in a competition, what is your ranking like. And I think you honing in on the fact that we are beautifully, imperfectly human. And in a world again of where there's optimization everywhere. How can I sleep better? How can I do this better? How can I all these betters, when it was such a great pause to go, maybe I am enough. And enough is really, really good right now. Enough can be a showstopper.
It can be a showstopper. And the other thing that I was struck by, Marie, was just the amount of, there's that word again, EQ, the amount of emotional intelligence in that room, especially emanating from these young people, again, who are not finished products.
Right.
And what what they were demonstrating to me was just the resilience. They were demonstrating courage. They were demonstrating growth. Just the idea that we all have something to look forward to, and the excitement that they had
Yes.
to look forward to this next, what we know from this work in mental health, that next transition from high school, where you maybe have a couple of hundred students in your class, maybe 1,000 if it's a bigger school, to a campus where there's 25, 30,000 students, maybe for larger campuses. Lots and lots of really good stuff to learn from our young people. And, I'll hit on this point. We talked about the resources that maybe are not as available to families to deal with some of the mental health and wellness challenges. And that is real. But I also, what I think is real is students are leaning in. They're
Mhm.
not shying away from the conversations that we're trying to have.
That is, yes, something worth celebrating. I join you in that optimism and that positive outlook. As parents, I believe that that's innate. We have to, by default, believe in the world that will be brighter and better than the ones that we were granted. And I will say I'm grateful for the world that and the life that my parents have given me, and I want to be able to give my kids more. And yes, they are leading the way. They inspire me because of their optimism, that imagination to see a brighter tomorrow. And as we have this conversation at the beginning of the new year, what a perfect time to celebrate opportunities to reassess where we are, look at what we've been through. Hey, how did that work out? How do I feel about that? And go, here's what I think I can tinker with. Not a complete makeover, doesn't need to be all that, but just more of, that conversation resonated with me. That message of resilience, curiosity, that resonated with me. And how can I share that gift with somebody else?
So Marie, and again, thank you for the time. I know you've got a little bit of a window getting ready to record, um, getting ready to go live with your broadcast as we're recording this. So again, thank you for doing this. I wanted to touch base with you and get your thoughts on the role that cultural competency plays in this work that we do. And I asked that question with intentionality because I think, being in a market like Las Vegas, it's super, super diverse. You have people from all sorts of different backgrounds and perspectives. From where you sit behind that anchor desk as you get ready to tee up stories on mental health matters and just in normal news coverage, what role does cultural competency play in your mind as we have these conversations?
I mean, I feel like it's always in the ether, right? It very much marks our conversations and how we present a story, our sensitivities to those who are presented in a story. I think what is one of the beautiful things about Las Vegas, to your point, speaking about diversity, when we're out in the community, we get a range of people and a range of voices. And my hope is that we can provide as much space as possible for those voices, because that is how we become aware of people's different backgrounds. That is what is competency without awareness? And what is awareness without finding understanding? You don't get to that understanding if people don't have an opportunity to speak. That's one of the gifts that I believe we have around us, but it has to come down to connection. If we're only speaking to the same folks over and over again, in the same silos over and over again, then what do we get? The same story over and over again. Let's broaden our reach. Again, the curiosity, the conversations that people will bring up to me. Hey, what about this angle? Did you talk to this person? What about this point of view? I love that. It's yes, 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 and yes. And can we make space for it all? So I hope that that is a not only a addressing cultural competency, the significance of it, but also a call to action. If we do not believe it exists or it doesn't exist in these spaces, in these corners, let's build it, right? I think you're so connected and you've been able to really expand your reach, knowing that what mental well-being looks like in the Asian community and the Black community and the Hispanic Latino community, in the white community, in the community of LGBTQ plus, those who have disabilities, those who are not typical. What does that cultural competency look like, feel like, sound like? And are we doing enough to make sure we're putting we're shedding a light on all of those different angles?
Yeah, no, very well said. And for those of you tuning in and listening or watching, you know, as a practical matter at the Avery Burton Foundation, we look at cultural competency as one of many tools in our toolbox to help people who may be in crisis, a mental health or wellness crisis, and even more specifically in how important that is. you know, Marie and I might text each other, "Hey, Reggie, I have a family that's looking for some resources. Do you have anyone at the Avery Burton Foundation that might be able to help them?" My response is intuitively to say, "Okay, Marie, tell me a little bit more about the family."
Right, right.
Right?
Yes.
That,
Yeah.
as a practical matter, that's what we're talking about. If they're Asian, which AAPI community is very big here in Southern Nevada, then we want to drill that down. Are they Filipino? Do they speak Tagalog? As you know, there's like 80 different dialects
Mm-hmm.
of that. Are they Chinese? Do they speak Mandarin? Are they Vietnamese? That allows us to really dial in and make sure that they're getting a therapist, or maybe there's a link on the Psychology Today website, which we post on our website at the Avery Burton Foundation page. We post those culturally competent resources for that very reason. So I'm so grateful to you and grateful to News Three and Mental Health Matters for not just taking this storytelling role that we have lightly, but really taking a deep dive and breaking that stigma and breaking down those barriers. Marie, I'm going to give you the microphone. You're comfortable with it to have the last word. Tell people where they can find or how
Oh,
they can find Mental Health Matters and where they can find you online.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Reggie. Mental Health Matters can be found on News 3 Mondays at 6 p.m. and News 3, news3lb.com. You know, the website, that's where we put all of our stories 24/7. But if you want to watch our newscast live, I broadcast at 5, 7, 10, and 11 Sunday nights after Sunday Night Football. So if that's how you want to start your work week or just get your caught up on the weekend's news, that's where you'll find me as well. And just a final note, I think that this podcast and what you do underscores what I believe is just so important to our existence, which is human conversation and human connection. So, Reggie, thank you for the opportunity to connect. And I hope that this is one of the many conversations that we will continue to have, not just here on the podcast, but really anyone who is looking to connect. Let's keep this going, right? Let's be the example of the world that we want to be. Connect, conversate, be seen, be heard, be well.
Well, very well stated. We'll end it right there, Marie. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this episode of Becoming a Mental Health Champion, the podcast. And as Marie stated very eloquently, let's continue the conversation either over at News 3, connecting with Marie on all the platforms, as they say, all the channels. Also, connect with the Avery Burton Foundation Resiliency Project on YouTube or Spotify to download this podcast. Please like and subscribe, and you can connect with me at Reggie Burton on all the socials. Thanks again, Marie.